Ivolka yells in frustration at how he dares to say such an insult. Han then sternly ponders if she doesn't want to improve. In response, Ivolka, frustratedly, turns around and reluctantly agrees to follow his advice. Ivolka's flame magic follows a 3-layer structure. The first layer is to ignite the flames and bring them forth. The second is to scorch by exploding the flames, and the third is to raise the explosion upwards with an updraft. Han considers that as Ivolka adds more layers to her magic, the mana expenditure increases significantly, resulting in a stronger effect. However, for the sake of efficiency, she must learn to balance power with sustainability. After that, Han approaches Jenna at the training ground, and as the 10th floor slowly approaches them, they train from sunrise to sunset, significantly increasing the intensity. During their training session, Han did arrow blocking training shots by Jenna, and he stopped using the shield at some point and started to add more conditions to himself during the training. Amid the training, Jenna commends Han, saying that he is getting stronger the more they do this. However, Han remains focused on the task at hand, and while dodging the arrow, he remarks that they are in the middle of training, so there is no need for compliments. With Han's relentless efforts, he acquired the projectile defense skill, and his beginner sword and shield proficiency has increased to level 6. Meanwhile, Jenna employs his switching technique to acquire proficiency in short swords and archery. As Han deftly sidestepped her onslaught of short sword strikes, Jenna swiftly returned to her archery. However, before fully executing her next move, she finds herself met with Han's sword already poised to counter her, showcasing his quick reflexes and anticipation. Han is deeply impressed by her skills and contemplates that although her base is a 1-star, she has incredible potential, and her learning rate is unnatural. He acknowledges that he would have been way behind Gina if he hadn't known about Pick Me Up before. Han then commends her skills, stating that she did fine, which makes her giggle, and she sarcastically remarks on his previous aversion to compliments during training. Later, Han reflects that a typical 1-star individual would be on par with Aaron's level of proficiency. Despite Aaron only advancing his beginner spearmanship to level 3, he remains secluded in his room, focused on mastering pain resistance. On the other hand, Ivolka also trains what Han told her in the Magic Hall's specialized training grounds. Although her firepower would decrease a little, her spells are already strong enough, and excluding extreme circumstances, it would be fine for her only to use the first layer. The training grounds had also had a few random 1-stars come in recently, and there still wasn't a useful one yet. Han contemplates that neither Party 1 nor 2 has been filled to the maximum of 5 people each, but it doesn't look like Enning intends to pull for more heroes, and he guesses that the Master is planning on putting guys like them in. The next day, Edith's party returned after entering the 9th floor, and they cleared the stage but seemed injured and depressed. Han remarks that it looks like some limbs were cut off and asks about the quest. Edith wearily states that it was to subjugate a goblin village of about 50 goblins. Han then inquires if there is anything special about the location, asking her to tell him if she saw something odd. In response, she reveals that the floor was a mud field as if right after rainfall. Other than that, she didn't notice anything else. Isel then notifies Han and his companions that it's their turn to venture into the dungeon. With Ivolka's ignited magic aiding their efforts, they swiftly overcame the challenges of the floor, clearing it with ease. As they exit the dungeon, Han reflects on their progress, realizing that the 4th floor no longer offers sufficient challenges for their training needs. As a result of their successful expedition, Han's level has reached 10, Jenna's is 8, Aaron's is 6, and Ivolka's is 4. Han considers that they are at the limit of how high their levels can get on their current floor, and they have raised it as much as they could. With the operation of the equipment workshop, the party's gear had improved overall. The E-rank shabby leather armors were strengthened to D-rank by putting metal plates on them, and he and Aaron received short swords as secondary weapons. 2 people who were in the training groups named Shuron and Macon were added to parties 1 and 2. Although they didn't have the experience, ability, or skills to keep up with the party, it couldn't be helped as level 10 was approaching. Later that night, Isel approaches Han and speculates whether he has foreseen the nature of the quest awaiting them on the 10th floor and if he feels confident in handling it effortlessly. Han dismisses the notion, stating that he would be akin to a god if he possessed such foresight. He reveals that he was wondering about the purpose of their presence but didn't ask useless questions. Isel remarks that he is a god, to which Han comments that if he were, he would have already conquered the 100th floor. Despite being recognized as one of the highest-ranked players in Pick Me Up, holding the title of Master of Masters, Han acknowledges his limitations. Even with his extensive experience, he only managed to reach the 88th floor over 2 years of playing, and dozens of his parties were wiped out due to unpredictable random patterns and traps. Han contemplates that the masters of Pick Me Up grow through defeats and considers that Master Anything doesn't know about defeat yet. He believes that if they continue going on like this, the moment the master learns of failure will be because of Han's death. The following day, all the heroes in the tower converge in the town square, prompting Evolka's curiosity about the sudden gathering. She questions why so many people are present, remarking that it doesn't seem like Isel, the youthful fairy, called for such an assembly. Standing beside Evolka, Han assures her that Isel will explain shortly, advising her not to question it for the time being. Meanwhile, Han reflects on the situation, noting that it has been 30 minutes since Master Enim logged on. He interprets the Master's lack of commands as a sign of contemplation, indicating that important decisions may be underway. As the system prompts the Master about the climb to the 10th floor, Han wonders if the Master will attempt the 10th floor and undertake this challenge. Reflecting on his party's readiness, Han notes that the newest member hasn't yet fully acclimated to their group dynamics. Additionally, he acknowledges that he himself has reached the maximum level for a 1-star character, but has yet to advance further. Han acknowledges a sense of incompleteness and considers that if the master leaves him for about a week, he can upgrade his skills to the 1-star limit. He believes that the additional training time will help them attempt the 10th floor in more favorable conditions, but he thinks that it doesn't fit the personality of the master that Han has seen until now. As the master accepts the challenge and Isel opens the space-time rift, Han's determination grows. He reminds himself that while the experiences may feel real to them, it's not the case for the master, as they are merely part of a game. Even if they face defeat and wipe out, Han acknowledges that it's acceptable for the master, as he can always recruit more heroes later. Han then commands the new party member, Shuran, to hide in a corner when the fight starts. In response, Shuran anxiously remarks that he can also fight. However, Han considers that a level 3 with level 1 beginner swordsmanship Shuran would be a hindrance at this stage, and if he had joined the party 1 week earlier, he would have taught Shuran some basics. Meanwhile, the system warns the master, indicating that the upcoming quest is difficult and requires 2 parties. It highlights that if he lacks party members, he must fill them using the premium or free summons. Furthermore, the system offers a helpful tip. The master can utilize the tactics room to provide a tactical guide to the heroes participating in the quest. Noting all that, Han realizes that the master wouldn't even know how to use the tactics room, as it's a bit too complicated for a beginner. He then instructs Isel to ask the master to make them take their items from the storage. Isel swiftly obeys Han's command and notifies the master that unused consumables are available. She recommends that the heroes carry these consumables to be utilized at appropriate times during the quest. Upon receiving permission from the master, Han takes 6 health potions and splits them with Edith's party, allocating 3 potions to each party. Han acknowledges that Evolka will use mana potions solely. Han suggests to Edith that they could divide into different areas, emphasizing the importance of regrouping quickly if necessary. When Edith expresses uncertainty about accomplishing this, Han advises her to aim for the central region. He assures her that if she loses track of where the center is, she can find it by scouting from a high vantage point. Before they enter the time-space rift, Isel addresses the party members, urging them to be good so they don't get in Han's way. She asserts her vigilance, stating that she will be keeping a close watch on them. Han responds with a confident grin, reassuring Isel not to worry as he will make them climb this tower. Shortly after, Party 1 is teleported to floor 10, where they encounter a distressed man who is unaware of their presence. He is found crying out loud in a corner, and his voice is filled with anxiety as he shouts that they are all doomed to die. The man expresses a sense of hopelessness, insisting that victory is unattainable and lamenting that even the women and children will meet their demise. Suddenly, Han smacks that man's back, and the man anxiously looks around, wondering who is there. Han, referring to the man as an idiot, ponders what this is. Meanwhile, Jenna informs Han that she thinks the older man can't see them, while the man, unaware of their presence, anxiously sits down, considering that it must be a ghost. Han realizes it's a non-player character, NPC, and reflects that there were many cases where NPCs appeared during quests. He wondered why they never worked well together, but it was like this. Han then looks around and remarks that this city feels familiar. Eren comments that now that Boss Han says it, he thinks they have been here before, and it looks a little different but feels familiar. Han then realizes that it's true that they have been here before, as this was that ruined city which was the stage for the 5th floor, but the difference is that it hasn't fallen yet. Jenna chimes in, stating that the timing is a little strange, and asks if it's all over the place. Han remarks that it's not the only thing that's all over the place and asks her to talk about the specifics later. Han emphasizes the critical importance of their summoning and the necessity to complete the mission to survive. He notes that although the mission hasn't officially commenced yet, and it may seem like they have time to relax, he believes gathering information about their surroundings is crucial. Han then allocates 5 minutes to each of his comrades to scout the area. He stresses the importance of returning to their current location within the specified time frame. Han clarifies that if anyone is late, they will proceed without them. The protagonist then ascends a building to view the location from a vantage point, considering it the best place to see the battle's progress. Beside him, a fully panicked NPC cries out loud that he doesn't want to die, and Han observes the soldier's despair, noting that his morale seems to have hit rock bottom. From his elevated position, Han surveys the city below. Han notices a ladder cart and considers it a relief that he doesn't see any battering rams anywhere. He notices that to the east, there is that river they saw on the 7th floor and hundreds of goblins. He reflects that the goblins don't have any siege equipment. Only half the number of forces are gathered outside the castle, and the ratio is 10 to 1 or maybe more. Han descends the stairs, considering it is the worst-case scenario just by looking at this, but the mission hasn't been announced yet. He acknowledges that if it is a survival mission, then his party's survival rate will increase. Furthermore, Han believes that if they were given another mission to survive within the given time, this floor would be much easier to clear than the 5th floor. There are enough NPCs that they can use as bait, and they also have a mage that can concentrate on area defense. Soon, the roulette of fate spins, and Party 2 joins them on floor 10. Suddenly, Han receives a 3-part warning message, which startles Han as the message signifies the highest difficulty. The system notifies him that the quest type of floor 10 is defended, and the objective is to stop the city's fall. Han is taken aback as this isn't a survival mission, but a defense one, and contemplates that combining parts 1 and 2, there is a total of 10 people with 350 NPCs, around 360 soldiers that need to fight against thousands of goblins. Han then asserts to his comrades that after they share their findings, they should discuss the mission details, objectives, and roles. Jenna informs him that she tried talking to the people within the city, but no one replied, which means that they can see and touch them, but they can't hear or see them. Additionally, Eren reports to Han that the refugees are heading towards the city center with goblins coming from the north and east gates. He adds that there are no gates in the south and west, so there aren't any escape routes, and speculates that if the outer wall falls, everyone within will be massacred. Edith then asks Han about their next course of action. Han reveals that their mission is to defend and protect the city and prevent the enemies from infiltration. In other words, they must annihilate the enemies. Han's revelation startles Edith, and at that moment, the aged man, Roderick Sehan, contemplates the possibility of retreating, suggesting that they could leave the city to observe the situation and launch guerrilla-style attacks. However, Han dismisses his suggestion and shares his belief that the key to success lies in eradicating the invading army. He emphasizes that the conditions for failure center around the protection of the central tower, the statue of the twin goddesses. Han asserts that regardless of annihilating all the goblins, they will fail the mission if that statue is destroyed. Roderick finds this assertion absurd and questions whether they need to protect the statue while fighting the enemies. Han insists that if they fail the mission, they will all die, which startles his comrades with the severity of the consequences. The older man then ponders if Han means they will die if they run away, and Han concurs. Han asserts that no matter where they are, the moment they fail, they will die, so there are no exceptions. However, Han himself acknowledges that's a ridiculous condition. Yet, as long as this place is a game, even if it's an impossible mission, there is a strategy. Han speculates that although there are lots of goblins, the only siege equipment is a ladder cart, and only the army in the north has that, which means that if the parties are all careful with the ladder carts, they can buy enough time. Han commands Edith's party to go to the outer wall of the north and help the soldiers there, urging them to do whatever they can to destroy the ladders that will hook onto the castle walls. Edith ponders if he is saying that's their rule, prompting Han to acknowledge her concerns and assure that he will listen to her opinion. She doubts it's just the 5 of them, and she doesn't think adding 5 to the existing 300 will make defending this city possible. Han understands her perspective and contemplates that if they calculate the power of Party 2, it's about 50 soldiers worth. Han emphasizes that as long as the goblins don't have any siege equipment like battering rams, they can only use ladder carts to attack the castle walls. Han asserts that if Party 2 can hold their place on the castle walls, the most dangerous place, then their defense efficiency will be a lot better. However, Edith clarifies that this isn't her concern. She argues that even if they manage to buy time, they still can't achieve victory. Contemplating the situation, Han acknowledges that while they may hold out a little longer, the overwhelming numerical advantage of the goblins means that they will eventually break through. He calculates that the difference in numbers between the enemy and them is more than 10 to 1, and even if they join forces, it would only become 10 to 2. Reflecting on their experience on the 5th floor, where the goblins showed no signs of retreat, Han concludes that this is a fight they can't win. However, he remains confident that a clue or solution must be hidden within the challenge. Han then tells his comrades that there is a river to the east of the city and asks them to recall the events of the 7th floor. The 7th floor was where it rained because the dam collapsed and the waterways were flooded. He reflects that all the clues from the 5th to the 9th floor are pointing towards the dam, but he wonders what the dam's collapse, which is far away, has to do with the attack. He clenches his fist in frustration that he doesn't have enough information. At that moment, Jenna suddenly interrupted with a revelation. She heard the sound of horse gallops beyond the river on the 7th floor. She adds that when she looked around, she noticed some riders on the other side of the river. Han is taken aback by this crucial information and questions why she didn't mention it sooner. Anxiously, Jenna explained that she hadn't been sure about its significance until now. The protagonist turns to Edith and instructs her to buy as much time as possible. He emphasizes that if the outer wall falls, they should retreat to the inner wall. Han tells her to use whatever means necessary, including the soldiers and refugees as bait, and if necessary, to close the gates and hold out until Party 1 returns. He acknowledges that it will be challenging for her, so he refrains from saying anything that might sound weak. Edith assures him that they understand and will do their best to fulfill their mission. Jenna expresses concern about the plan, questioning their actions and whether it's too sloppy. Han remarks that Edith, unlike Jenna, is smart and understands things quickly, and he urges Jenna to bring her weapons, revealing that they will head to the east gate and leave the city. Eren then asks Han why they are leaving the outer walls, as there are thousands of goblins out there, expressing concerns that it's too dangerous. Han acknowledges his concerns but emphasizes that they still need to, as if they stay here, they will just get annihilated. Han then contemplates that on the 7th floor, the dam had already collapsed, and if the sound that Jenna heard was reinforcements, then the city fell on the 5th floor because the reinforcements couldn't cross the river because of the dam. Realizing this, he concludes they must leave through the east gate, confront the goblins, and prevent the dam from collapsing. With determination, he declares that they are going after the goblins' heads. Han then commands his comrades to hurry up and move the refugees to the inner castle, and later Ivolka remarks that they barely got past them. Eren, while sprinting, states that they have only gotten out of the inner castle, and the real deal starts there. As they approach the outer gate, Han commands Jenna to climb the castle walls to check the situation outside and instructs Eren to prepare to open the gate. Han urgently hails Ivolka to start casting, and when the castle gate opens, she pours out her second layer of flames immediately. Upon Han's command, Eren turns the pulley that opens the gate, which creates panic among the soldiers. As they can't see Eren, they think the pulley is turning by itself and rush to stop it. Meanwhile, Jenna, from a vantage point, informs Han that there are already tons of goblins outside the gate, and ponders wouldn't open the gate here, making them flood in. Han dismisses Jenna's concerns, asserting that it doesn't matter, and orders her to get down for now. He reassures her that Ivolka's magic will break through the path. Han then asks Jenna to stop the soldiers so they don't interfere. Han takes charge and swiftly incapacitates a soldier, prompting the head of the soldiers to speculate if an evil spirit has invaded. He commands his underlings to stop it at any cost, but Jenna impedes their progress by tripping them with her foot. Meanwhile, as Ivolka chants to cast her spell, a goblin shoots an arrow through the slightly opened outer gate. However, Han intervenes just in time, catching the arrow with his bare hands. With remarkable precision, he shoots the arrow back at the goblin. As Jenna continues to deal with the soldiers to prevent them from interfering with Eren pulling the pulley, they remain baffled about who is obstructing them. Suddenly, the rain started pouring, prompting Han to ponder Ivolka that her flames wouldn't go out just because of some rain. With an unwavering concentration on casting her spell, she responds with a confident smirk. Meanwhile, Eren successfully opens the gate, which prompts the goblins to enter and lunge at Ivolka. Undeterred by the looming threat, she swiftly unleashes her ignite spell, engulfing the area in flames. Meanwhile, Han commands her not to blow up the gate, but instead detonate it outside the walls. Following his directive, she employs the combust spell, which overpowers many goblins and gives her comrades room to stride forward. As Ivolka finishes casting the spell, Han hands her a mana potion, advising her to take a sip after every shot to replenish her energy. He then reminds her there are still many goblins to contend with, questioning whether she can handle it. In response, Ivolka confidently asserts that she can, claiming that she can fire at least 100 more times. After that, Han turns his attention to Shuran, who seems baffled by this turn of events. With a grin, he asks if he is still considering following them. Sensing Shuran's apprehension, Han directs him to seek guidance from Edith, assuring him that she will provide instructions. As Shuran hurries off at Han's command, Han casually remarks that if Shuran manages to survive the battle, he'll offer some coaching afterward. Later, Han notices the soldiers closing the gate again. He steps out, realizing that their escape route is blocked and the only path left is forward. Noting the menacing goblins ahead, Han resolves to kill them all. He commands his comrades to form the triangle formation with Ivolka in the center. He instructs Mage Ivolka to employ her only first layer of the spell, stating that it's fine even if the firepower is weak, and advises her to spread her fire as wide as possible. As the rain becomes heavier, Han realizes that the goblins will move through the flames and swarm them, and he is aware that there are 20 seconds left until Ivolka's casting finishes. Within those 20 seconds, Han, Eren, and Jenna take the initiative to engage the goblins, aiming to thwart their progress as much as possible and shield Ivolka simultaneously. Utilizing their skills, they strive to repel the goblin onslaught and safeguard Ivolka's position. As the casting time is up, Han commands Jenna and Eren to secure Ivolka's line of sight and advises them to change their positions to protect themselves from the flames. As the mage unleashes her magic spell, Han breaks through the flames, commanding Jenna and Eren to follow suit. Han contemplates that although he felt the intense heat over the leather armor, he could endure it to a certain extent and considers that they are fortunate that Ivolka became a part of the party. However, because of the rain, the fire barricades are disappearing quickly. Undeterred, he determinedly confronts the swarming goblins and commands Ivolka to cast the spell again, determined to hold their ground against the enemy onslaught. He commands Eren to reinforce the right and assures him that he will take this place himself. As another 20 seconds of casting time starts, the trio takes charge, each focusing on their designated tasks. Suddenly, a goblin attempts a sneak attack to assault Han, but he skillfully deflects that assault and swiftly overpowers that goblin. Soon, the casting time is over, and as Ivolka employs her ignite spell, which engulfs most of the monsters, Han urges his comrades to break through the flames and keep moving forward. He advises them to use the flames as a shield, and reveals that they will break through to the river like this. Despite Ivolka's menacing spell, thousands of goblins still await them on their way to the river. On the other hand, the goblins' leader, noting all the chaos, becomes ferocious and unleashes its sword. The goblin leader brandishes the sword in the air and commands its underlings to attack with greater ferocity. Meanwhile, as Ivolka employs the spell, Han urges his comrades to charge to confront those monsters. As he takes out a goblin, Han notices that the attack pattern of the goblins has suddenly changed, prompting him to contemplate that they are using fire magic, but despite that, the goblins start charging forward. Nevertheless, sensing the situation's urgency, Han takes decisive action, swiftly eliminating a large number of advancing goblins with remarkable precision and speed. Han discerns the sudden change in the goblins' attack pattern because of their leader's command. Amid the chaos, Han reflects on the leader's strategic insight. The leader knows there is a delay in Ivolka's casting, so they are charging at them relentlessly. Han believes they can't move forward like this, as the leader has seen through their plan. Confronting the goblins, Han disdainfully remarks that their leader is uselessly intelligent. Han acknowledges that although Eren and Jenna look fine, they would not hold out long. He realizes that his party is in a situation with no oxygen and is surrounded by fire. Han acknowledges that it doesn't make them completely immune to flames despite their increased fire resistance. As Ivolka prepares to unleash her spell once again, Han gathers his comrades, stressing the importance of listening carefully. He urges that they cannot afford to fail and only have one chance, and Eren anxiously wonders what the boss means by one chance. Han sternly clarifies that he is discussing an opportunity to tear apart that goblin leader with decorations on him. Meanwhile, the goblin leader commands its underlings to hasten their attacks. As the mage casts her spell, more goblins lunge at them, but the trio does their best to fend them off. Han then commands her to burn them with 3-layer flames, which has a high impact. He acknowledges that one round of magic might not be sufficient, but he declares that they are not done yet and refers to goblins as bastards. Ivolka employs consecutive flare magic, unleashing a barrage of fiery spells that eradicate most of the goblins with high intensity. Seizing this moment as an opportunity, Jenna swiftly shoots an arrow at the goblin leader, who catches it off guard, and he tumbles to the ground with that deadly shot. On the other hand, Ivolka falls unconscious due to the massive mana consumption, but Han swiftly catches her before she hits the ground and lifts her in his arms to support her. Han reflects on the limitations of magic, acknowledging its power, but also recognizing that it cannot eliminate all of their enemies. He considers that they will be annihilated if their enemies continue to mob them without giving them time to organize themselves. However, he discerns that the goblins' ultimate goal isn't his party but the fortress, and he perceives that they are just an obstacle in their enemy's way. Han contemplates whether the goblins will put their lives on the line for their original goal, the fortress, or if they will remove the obstacles. As the head of the command, the goblin leader is gone now, and Han wonders what the goblins will do now. A few minutes later, as the fire encircles Han's party, the goblins lunge towards the fortress, and the protagonist wonders if they will choose the fortress to attack. Later, as the rain pours heavily, the party manages to evade the remaining goblins and find a safe place to rest for a while. While catching his breath on the ground, Eren adds that because they were so far away from the fortress, the goblins didn't seem interested in them and were headed straight for the fortress instead. Han reflects on their survival, acknowledging that it was due to their success in eliminating the goblin commander. He realizes their plan would have failed if the commander had still been alive, and the leader would have likely focused on eliminating them instead. Han then pours a potion on his arm, stating they will rest and use the health potions. He urges his comrades to put it on their burns and take one gulp, asserting that they each have one left, so they should conserve it. Han notes that the north wall is still in the middle of a siege and the outer wall is still standing, and he wonders if Edith's party is still pushing through. Han considers this to be the beginning of his party, and standing near the ladder cart, he notices level 9 approaching them. As he realizes they won't give them a break, he urgently commands his comrades to get ready to fight. However, they express reluctance as they haven't even rested for that long. Suddenly, Eren's attention is drawn to a towering figure among the goblins, and he alerts Han to the new threat. Han remains undeterred and remarks that this time, the goblins have brought a formidable ally, an ogre. Recognizing the situation's urgency and the chaos about to unfold, Han swiftly assigns roles to his comrades. He commands Ivolka to erect a firewall to halt the advancing goblins and sets Eren to protect her while she does so. Ivolka expresses concerns, stating that she can stop the goblins, but her spell won't stop the giant monster. Han firmly rebukes her to stop taking nonsense and begin her spell. He then declares that he will deal with that monster. Soon, the ogre approaches Han and attempts to harm him, which he barely manages to evade. He acknowledges the monster's strength, asserting that he will die if he gets a hit even once. Noting the powerful impact of the ogre's hammer-like weapon, resembling a goblin's horn, Han realizes that a shield or traditional defenses would be futile against such a powerful and unconventional weapon. He concludes that even though it will take longer, the only way is to attack it gradually. However, Han doesn't let his guard down, and he determinedly manages to land an assault on that giant adversary. While Han engages the giant foe in close combat, Jenna provides vital support from a distance with her archery skills. Her arrows find their mark on the ogre's massive body, exploiting its size to land accurate shots. Jenna realizes that targeting such a large opponent is far easier than dealing with the agile goblins, as the ogre lacks the agility to evade her attacks. With this advantage in mind, Jenna focuses on stacking damage with successive shots, aiming to weaken the ogre and aid in its defeat. To her surprise, Jenna observes that the ogre remains largely unaffected by her arrows, deflecting them effortlessly with immense strength. Despite her precise shots, the ogre's robust physique is a formidable barrier against her attacks. Jenna reflects on the contrast between battling the ogre and dealing with the goblins, realizing that the larger opponent presents a much greater challenge than the smaller, more agile foes. While confronting the ogre, Han informs Jenna that it's not dodging because it doesn't have to. As the attacks aren't hitting its vital point, it won't harm it, so he suggests she not waste her arrows. Suddenly, Jenna delivers sad news that another formidable ogre has appeared, which catches Han off guard. The protagonist urgently notes that Eren has his hands full of goblins and contemplates the distribution of his party's strength, which fell through because one more showed up. He considers that the longer this goes on, the more disadvantageous this situation will be for them. Recognizing their increasingly disadvantageous situation, Han decides to take a risk and leaps to assault the adversary. With a decisive move, Han purposefully targets the monster's vital point, causing it to yell out in pain and counterattack, which tumbles Han aside, but he manages to evade it. In a sudden move, Han leaps the monster's body and with a decisive move, slits its neck. He then retreats his sword and consecutively stabs the monster's body, causing it to bleed profusely and fall to the ground. As the protagonist knocks one down, another ogre approaches them, and Han wonders if it's after Ivolka and commands Jenna to lure it with her arrows. Despite Jenna's valiant effort to fend off the ogre with her arrows, they prove ineffective against the massive creature. Undeterred, the ogre continues its relentless advance toward Ivolka, who remains engrossed in casting her spell with her eyes tightly shut. As the creature looms dangerously close, poised to crush Ivolka beneath its enormous foot, Han abruptly calls her out, and she quickly steps aside, narrowly escaping the imminent danger. At that moment, a vague doubt hits Han's mind that the dam that collapsed on the 7th floor, as something had hit it, the broken fragments and holes in the dirt, and a goblin that doesn't have a weapon, but has the power to destroy the castle wall and building. Putting it together, Han realizes it's not aiming for Ivolka, it's going for the dam. Jenna takes decisive action, leaping onto the ogre's shoulder to launch an attack and halt its progress towards the dam. Han quickly joins in and provides support as they coordinate their moves to bring down the monstrous creature. Together, they successfully defeat the ogre, ensuring it poses no further threat. The ogre falls deep inside the river, which causes a large splash of water, and Han breathes a sigh of relief, realizing they narrowly averted disaster near the dam. However, his relief is short-lived as the ogre unexpectedly regains consciousness and unleashes a devastating blow, which shatters the dam. The sudden turn of events takes Han aback. Meanwhile, Eren calls out to Han, stating that they have killed the remaining goblins and asks about their next course of action. Han's despair is palpable as he grapples with realizing their failure. He reflects that if the information and predictions he obtained were accurate, there would probably be reinforcements beyond the dam that would come through the forest. However, as the dam has now collapsed, they won't be able to cross the river. At this rate, Han contemplates that 10 people from parties 1 and 2, alongside 360 soldiers defending the fortress, will need to stop more than 3,000 goblins. Eren repeatedly calls out to Han, but remains deeply absorbed in contemplating their next course of action amidst this dire situation. The protagonist then unsheathes his sword and directs his comrades to retreat, stressing the need to regroup and formulate a new plan. Ivolka then ponders whether the second plan even exists and urges them to wait here while Han wonders what she is talking about. Without uttering a word, Ivolka activates a spell from the bangle on her wrist, Drasut Surjus, and begins chanting mystical incantations, causing a purple aura of mana to envelop her. Ivolka's magic causes a giant boulder submerged in the river to levitate, startling Han with its sudden movement. With unwavering determination, Ivolka exerts her power to manipulate the massive rock, maneuvering it skillfully to bridge the gaps in the shattered dam. With a mighty effort, she positions the boulder between the broken sections, creating a partial pathway that connects both ends of the dam. Han becomes bewildered to see that, and Ivolka remarks that telekinesis is the most basic spell and there is no way she wouldn't know this. Han sarcastically pulls Evolka's cheeks, reminding her that he instructed her to disclose all her spells. Evolka defends herself by saying that telekinesis is so basic that she doesn't see the need to mention it. Han expresses gratitude to her, recognizing that their survival is owed to her efforts, and admits that without Evolka, the mission would have ultimately been unsuccessful. Suddenly, Jenna informs Han about the sprawling goblins, and he speculates if they call for their pack. Han takes one down with a precise move, while his comrades swiftly take action and determinedly confront the goblins. Amid this chaos, Han contemplates that it's been a while since the stage started, but there were still no traces of reinforcements, and he feels anxious about this. He wonders what will happen if he is wrong and reinforcements don't exist in the first place. Han quickly commands Evolka to consume the remaining potions and unleash her second layer magic. However, a goblin suddenly seizes the opportunity to launch an assault on Evolka. Despite Han being too far away to intervene physically, he urgently calls out to her to warn her of the imminent danger. However, before the goblin lays an attack, a warrior with an iron lion appears out of nowhere and slits that goblin in two halves. The Iron Lion warrior urges his cavalry to show their might and confront the goblins. Soon, hundreds of warriors in their horses crossed the river appeared there and joined the battle. Han urgently commands Jenna and Eren to gather towards Evolka, and they swiftly comply with his directive. As the battle between the warriors and goblins starts, Han speculates there were approximately 500 NPC warriors in the cavalry force. Han believes that even though the warriors lack numbers, they seem much stronger than the city guards. Standing aside, the party notes that the warriors are pushing the goblins hard and giving them a hard time, so Han finds it insane. They comment that their part in this battle is finished and ponder if they can finally take a breather and strategize. Meanwhile, Han wishes that they can do the same as the warriors, and as he notes two stranded horses of dead warriors, he asks his comrades if they know how to ride a horse. Jenna confirms her ability and asks if Han is familiar with horseback riding, to which he admits he needs to learn immediately. Han considers that while masters typically can't directly participate in battles, they can still exert influence. He asks the system to open the skill book for equestrianism, which players can acquire after purchase. Han spends 500 gems to buy equestrianism, one of the skill books available at the combat shop. He acknowledges that he can't learn combat-related skills directly, but sees the value in acquiring supplementary skills to advance in his journey. The team then rides the horses. Jenna and Eren settle on one, while Han and Evolka take the reins of the other. Jenna reminds Han about his earlier statement that he didn't know how to handle a horse ride, but Han remarks that he knows now. Han acknowledges that they have learned the odds a little, and now they will start the counterattack. While riding the horse, Han contemplates that the goblins around the east side won't be that threatening until the castle's gate falls. He considers that currently, they need to be most careful of the ones with siege ladders on the north side, and the cavalry are heading north with that mind as well. Han acknowledges that if they follow the cavalry like this, it will be a success, but he speculates that there is no way it would be that easy, and there is no way this damned game would end like that. He urgently commands his comrades to fall off to the side, asserting they will move away from the battlefield. Eren expresses concern about protecting the northern gates, but Han counter-questions if he thinks it would end like this. Amidst the goblins' arrow onslaught, Han pulls his horse's harness, urgently guiding his comrades to move out of the range of those arrows. He announces their retreat towards the northern forest, seeking refuge from the relentless assault. As they head towards the north of the forest, Han observes that the rain has ceased and thinks it's fortunate timing. Just before they enter the forest, Han's attention is drawn to the presence of goblin riders setting up an ambush from within the forest. He speculates that if they block the enemy's path with Evolka's magic, they can stop it. Han assesses the situation, noting there are approximately 200 goblin riders and 23 giant ogres, and anticipates that it would pose a significant problem if the wolf rider goblins were to join forces with the main group from this location. Han asserts that the cavalry wouldn't be sufficient to hold the riders back without support and asks Evolka if she has enough magic left. Evolka responds affirmatively but mentions that her magic might not be very potent. Han emphasizes that the area is more important than the power, instructing Evolka to focus her magic on burning the entire forest as they plan to pass through it. On the other hand, amidst the siege on the outer walls, Dika bravely confronts the encroaching goblins with unwavering resolve. However, his efforts are interrupted as the goblin grabs hold of him, causing him to fall, but fortunately, Edith intervenes and assassinates that goblin. While grateful for her timely assistance, Dika expresses his thanks to Edith, but while engaged in battle, she urges him to stay focused and continue fighting. Soon, the Iron Lion cavalry arrives, led by their commanding officer, who encourages his soldiers to unleash their full strength against the enemy. They charge forward and begin the battle against the goblins with swift determination. As she observes the arrival of reinforcements, Edith understands that Han's plan has succeeded. Amidst the intense fight, she encourages her comrades to persevere a little longer, assuring them that victory is right around the corner. Her words ignite a renewed determination among the fighters as they press on with unwavering resolve. On the other hand, Ivolka unleashes her Ignite spell and sets the entire forest on fire, which engulfs all the rider goblins and assassinates them. Meanwhile, Han realizes that Ivolka will go into mana overflow if she uses more magic than this, so her role probably ends here. He acknowledges that they will burn down the entire forest at this rate, but that doesn't matter. He contemplates that all this would be for the best since it's a good goblin breeding ground, and burning it all up would also clear them out. The city's defense continued from there. About 100 surviving soldiers fought on the northern walls, and the city's defenders suffered many casualties before the cavalry could join them. Half of the cavalry died fighting an ogre ambush, and a battle between them and the remnants of the goblin riders occurred shortly after. On the other hand, their decision to set the forest ablaze proved to be a game-changer, as it prevented the cavalry from being overwhelmed and annihilated. They were strong. Even though they suffered an overwhelming disadvantage in numbers, their skill overcame the difference. With their mission accomplished, a wave of relief washed over everyone, and the reinforcements celebrated their hard-earned victory. The members of Party 2 are also excited that they have survived this challenging ordeal. Soon, Han and his comrades arrive at the castle, and Edith waves to welcome them. Han is thrilled they didn't suffer any casualties and received no message that someone went to the goddess. Jenna happily considered that they were different compared to how they were on the 5th floor. She then casually ponders why they aren't returning yet, asking whether they didn't finish their mission. Han suddenly senses something amiss as he realizes that the stage-clear message fails to appear despite defeating all the monsters. Suddenly, the system prompts a now-loading message, and everything around him freezes. The cavalry, the horse he is riding on, and even his comrades. Han becomes utterly bewildered by the sudden turn of events, unsure of what is happening. The system then mentions that a server error has occurred and he has been disconnected. He notices that everything has stopped, and the system commands him to look behind him. As he turns around, he sees two shadows and soon realizes one of them is the level 999 bug that brought him there. Reflecting on how it brought him there, Han becomes enraged and refers to it as a bastard. With a party of max level, 6-star heroes selected among many, Han was the first in Korea to break through the 88th floor. Using heroes that wouldn't be inferior to anyone else's, he rose to 5th on the global rankings. Pick-me-up's hero pulls, skills, and battles are all luck-based. The battles are done automatically by the heroes. Even though Han can give them general instructions, they are the ones who decide when and how they use their skills. For an unknown reason, things that are impossible to do during battle are also allowed. However, if this truly were a game decided only by stars and luck, then he would not have been able to rise to the position of a ranker. The biggest factor that drew him into Pick-me-up was that with skill, one could overcome with luck. However, one of the shadows belonged to an entity from Han's past, its level inexplicably set at 999. Given that excluding 7-star heroes, the level limit in the game was capped at 99. Han found this situation absurd. As Han ferociously turns around, his attention is suddenly diverted to the other shadow standing near that level 999 bug. The second shadow, draped in darkness, is the Dark Priest, with level 75. With a menacing grin and intense crimson eyes, he asserts that he will eagerly await Han's next encounter. This startles the protagonist. With that, both of them turn around, and soon level 999 fades away, and the Dark Priest disappears into the burning forest. Shortly after, the system reported a successful recovery, and informed him that they were reconnecting to the server, apologizing for any inconvenience caused. Soon, everything turns back to normal, but Han's bewildered expression persists, prompting Jenna to inquire about the reason behind it. At that moment, Han urgently commands Jenna to ride the horse into the castle quickly, urging her to snap out of it. With the newfound equestrian skill, the protagonist swiftly rushes his horse inside the castle, while Eren anxiously wonders the reason behind this chaos. Han responds by asserting that it's not over yet, indicating further challenges ahead. Han is aware that the Dark Priest is a monster that has never been reported to be seen on the lower floor, which is unprecedented. Suddenly, a soldier notices that menacing creature, which catches him off guard. With its creepy teeth, the giant monster devours the soldier while he screams in terror. Eren is taken aback to see that bizarre creature and dead goblins getting alive, while Han urges his comrades, no matter what happens, to ignore them and run straight away to the place they came from. The system alerts the protagonist to the appearance of around 2,000 living corpses. Han knows that under special circumstances, dark priests can resurrect corpses, turning them into living corpses that will relentlessly attack unless their heads are destroyed. Upon seeing Party 1 approaching, Edith urgently commands the soldier to open the door, allowing Han's party to enter quickly. As they enter, Han halts his horse near the gate and takes off Ivolka, stating that he will leave her to the rest of the party members. He commands his party to regroup with Edith in the inner castle and protect the goddess statue. He emphasizes that they can hold on to the impending danger if they shut and lock the gate, and urges them to hold on until he returns. Han's declaration startled Jenna, and Eren anxiously questioned how Han could go outside alone when there were monsters like that. Han urges Eren to wake up, asking if Eren will return alive with him, or if he will become food for those living corpses. Eren anxiously remarks that he will return with Boss Han, while Jenna and Ivolka express concerns about Han's safety, urging him not to die. However, despite the chaos, Han grins confidently and assures them that he will be all right. As the protagonist moves outside the castle, the gates are closed. With an unwavering resolve, Han unsheathes his sword to confront thousands of menacing living corpses. As they rush towards him, Han confidently confronts them, considering that they look hideous and terrifying but are nothing alone. He acknowledges that it would be his end if he tried and faced off against all those corpses at once. Suddenly, Han's attention is diverted to the giant ogre with a horn-like hammer, whom he had previously slain, now relentlessly pounding on the castle gate. Han ponders if this monstrous figure has been resurrected, realizing that the gates won't withstand the assault much longer. In the meantime, seizing the opportunity, two monsters rush to follow him, which may catch him off guard. However, before they can launch an attack, Jenna, positioned on the castle's second floor, skillfully assassinates them with her bow. On the other hand, the monstrous beings relentlessly pound at the castle gate, which catches the soldiers off guard. Eventually, they break through and menacingly barge inside the castle, which creates panic among the soldiers, and they rush anxiously to save themselves. Meanwhile, Han is also taken aback by the sudden turn of events, as the gates have been breached already. However, he doesn't let his guard down and continues to head toward the burning forest, acknowledging that he needs to deal with the caster, Dark Priest, who disappeared in the burning forest. That's where he was waiting for him. With unwavering determination, he advances through the chaos, confronting the relentless onslaught of the living corpses along the way. The living corpses movement follows two principles. Firstly, to destroy the goddess statue, and secondly, their hunger for living beings. Their fighting skills and physical capabilities are much worse than when they were alive, but their desire to consume flesh increases abnormally. They grow more annoying the stronger they are alive, and the more bodies are nearby. The attackers encounter a completely randomized pattern designed to disrupt their efforts. The chaotic situation makes Han wish that he had two bodies to manage it better. On the other hand, the way Edith confronts the menacing monsters, Han considers that her leadership is much more excellent than he gave her credit for. Even in a situation like this, she is showing considerable combat capacity. The one thing they need to prioritize above all is the protection of the goddess statue. He considers that if the outer walls are breached, they must immediately defend themselves from the inner walls and barricade themselves inside the castle gates. If Jenna and Eren use their experience from the 5th floor, they can hold on for longer. On the other hand, the NPCs become fully panicked and rush towards the castle, urging the soldiers to open the gate and pleading to save them from approaching monsters. They anxiously request them to take them inside the castle, but no one responds to their pleas, and soon the monsters approach them. Han notices that it doesn't matter how long that side endures, and he wonders how fast he can deal with the Black Priest. As Han steps inside the forest, which is engulfed in fire, the system mentions that his fire resistance has increased to level 2. Suddenly, two giant ogres engulfed in flames lunge to assault him, but he skillfully manages to overpower them. He then gulps the health potion to regain his stamina and reaches the edge of the map, acknowledging that the Black Priest is there. Soon, he receives a notification that Maken has fallen into a panic and his stats have decreased by 50%. With that, a list of notifications appeared that Shuran was frightened while Maken had returned to the goddess's embrace. Another notification mentions that Edith is bleeding and will lose health regularly. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a dark, suspicious projectile appears. However, Han reacts swiftly and evades it with his shield. He realizes that the Black Priest's combat capabilities are low, but it's a monster that would normally appear on the middle floors. Yet, like the current situation, its relative strength seems to differ significantly in the lower floors. Suddenly, 3 more projectiles are shot towards him, which catches him off guard, but he doesn't let his guard down and narrowly manages to evade it. However, a projectile hits Han's shoulder, and he starts bleeding profusely. He acknowledges that he would have been a goner if he didn't have a projectile defense. He realizes that the situation isn't good as smoke and dust get mixed into his lungs every time he inhales. Noting the urgency, he decides that he must assassinate the Dark Priest before his consciousness fades and before his party is annihilated. However, unexpectedly, without appearing, the Dark Priest urges Han that he wants to talk to him. Taken aback by the sudden events, the protagonist agrees and asks what it is. The Dark Priest remarks that Han is different from them and smacks him, prompting him to slide away. Suddenly, another projectile is shot at Han, and he urgently enters his berserk state to confront that menacing monster. The Dark Priest launches simultaneous projectiles to assault the protagonist, which hits him badly and pierces his body from several parts. However, he doesn't let his guard down and, with an unwavering resolve, confronts the monster, which catches him off guard. The protagonist then menacingly strides forward and overpowers and assassinates him with the help of his dagger, prompting the Dark Priest to bleed profusely. At that moment, he is released from the berserk state and has no stamina left. Due to severe injuries, blood starts gushing out of Han's mouth, and he urgently sits near a tree. Fully exhausted, he wonders why the stage clear message isn't appearing, and if it isn't clear yet. Suddenly, he starts losing consciousness, considering that this is the end, as he doesn't know any more than this. As he is severely injured, he believes that he will probably die before the goddess statue breaks. However, he wonders what kind of death it would be as he got dragged to an unknown place, and he is going to die, having suffered the whole time. Meanwhile, his comrades are fully engrossed in the battle against the living corpses, while a few useless members of both parties, like Shuran and Maken, die in the war. Despite the odds, they manage to protect the goddess statue, and because of their unwavering determination, they tend to clear the deadly quest. The system notifies all the survivor members, including Han, Jenna, Ivolka, Edith, Roderick, Ursher, and Dika, levels up while Han is selected as the most valuable player. The system notifies that among the Master's heroes, there is a hero awaiting advancement. Once the materials are gathered, craft the advancement stone and retrieve the lost memory fragments. The system congratulates the Master on clearing the 10th floor and mentions that the waiting room's name will be set to Taunir. Later, Han wakes up in his residence, wondering if he is still alive. He then approaches the cafeteria, where Eren is sitting alone. He anxiously turns around, asking Han about his well-being, and informs him that everyone is worried. The protagonist then ponders what they were worried about and asks Han about what he was contemplating so much that he looks like this. Eren remarks that he was thinking about why they fought and reflects that after they left the gates, the corpses flooded the city and NPCs would have died in swatches. As Eren leaves, Han realizes that his stress level has increased because of the severe chaos of floor 10. He then asks Eren if he will come out tomorrow looking like that, to which Eren responds with a grin, stating that he will bounce back by then. The next morning, Jenna is amazed to see the dining table full of various foods and curiously asks Chloe why they are having such a fancy breakfast. With a grin, Chloe remarks that Mr. Han told her to make the best meal she could with the ingredients they had. While savoring the meal, Han asks Jenna about her inquiry, wondering if she doesn't like it. Jenna excitedly denied his assertion, stating that she liked it and considered that this was always such a great welcome. The protagonist then looks around, noting that, fortunately, Jenna, Eren, and Ivolka are all normal now. However, Dika seems bewildered and depressed, and Han realizes that this guy will take a while to recover from his stress. Later that day, the system welcomes the master to pick me up and mentions that a hero awaits advancement. Furthermore, it explains that the hero who can advance is Han, and says that to advance a hero, the master needs to require an auxiliary building to the synthesizing room to construct the advancement room. The master commences the construction of the advancement room, which will make advancing heroes possible. The master commences the item synthesis, which includes 3 different stones to form a low-grade advancement stone. Soon, with some rumble, tumble, and fairy power, the process is complete and the desired product is obtained. Shortly after, Isel appears out of nowhere with the advancement stone and enthusiastically congratulates Han on advancing. She emphasizes that with this stone, he will graduate from 1 star and wishes to keep it up to 7 stars, urging him to smash through the tower. Meanwhile, Han, gazing at the stone in his hand, expresses doubts that he can get to 7 stars. At that moment, Isel confidently asserts that nobody but Han can achieve such feasts. In response, Han emphasizes that if that were the case, Cirrus would have already been 7 stars. He reflects that he tried everything he could, but he could never obtain a 7-star hero. However, he considers that there is probably a separate condition that has to be met. The master then starts the advancement. Han is aware of the additional facility inside the synthesizing room, the advancement room, where, after entering, he will advance to a 2-star hero. Before entering, Han wonders if this is the door connected to the 2nd floor, and then ascends the stairs. Advancement is one of the areas that the master can't see. After putting the hero and ingredients into the advancement room, the hero appears a little later after advancing to the next star,